everyone, welcome back to the podcast. How's your day going so far? Whether you're listening on your way to work, while cooking dinner, or maybe just relaxing at home, we're really happy you're here with us today.
Hey everyone, it's always nice spending time with you. And Anna, I have a question for you. Have you ever been asked a really simple question that somehow felt incredibly difficult?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I think that happens more often than people realize. What kind of question are you talking about?
The classic one. Tell me about yourself.
Oh no. You know what's funny? That question sounds so easy. I mean, who knows you better than you know yourself? But somehow the moment someone asks it, your mind goes completely blank.
Exactly. It's like all your memories suddenly disappear. You forget your hobbies, you forget your job, you forget your favorite food. For a few seconds, you don't even know who you are anymore.
That's so true. And I think a lot of English learners experience this. They understand the question, they know the words, they've studied English for months or even years, but when someone says, "Tell me about yourself," everything suddenly feels difficult.
You know what, Anna? I don't think this only happens to English learners. I've seen native speakers struggle with it too, because talking about yourself can feel surprisingly uncomfortable.
I agree. Sometimes it's not about language at all. It's about pressure. You want to sound interesting. You want to make a good impression. You don't want to say something boring. And suddenly you're overthinking every sentence.
Exactly. You start asking yourself questions. Should I talk about work? Should I talk about my hobbies? Should I mention my family? Am I talking too much? Am I talking too little? And before you know it, you're trapped inside your own thoughts.
I think many listeners can relate to that feeling. Maybe you've experienced it during an English class, or during a job interview, or maybe when meeting someone new online. The situation changes, but the feeling is often the same. A little nervous, a little awkward, a little unsure.
And the funny thing is, most people aren't expecting a perfect answer. They're just trying to get to know you. They're curious about who you are, but we often imagine that we're being judged much more than we actually are.
That's a really important point. Most people aren't sitting there thinking, wow, that was a terrible introduction. They're usually thinking about their own introduction.
That's true. They're probably just as nervous as you are.
You know, when I was younger, I thought confident people were born confident. I thought they naturally knew what to say. They never felt nervous. They never worried about making mistakes. But over time, I realized that's not true at all.
Same here. Some of the most confident people I've met admitted they were nervous when meeting new people. The difference is that they kept talking anyway. They didn't wait until they felt completely ready.
And that's something we'll explore today, because talking about yourself isn't just useful for learning English, it's useful in everyday life. When you make new friends, when you travel, when you join a new community, when you start a new job, or even when someone simply asks, "So, tell me about yourself."
And the good news is this: you don't need a perfect story. You don't need advanced vocabulary. You don't need to sound impressive. You just need to learn how to share a little bit of who you are.
Exactly. And sometimes the most memorable introductions are actually the simplest ones. But speaking of introductions, David, this topic reminds me of a very embarrassing moment I had a few years ago.
Oh? Now I'm curious. What happened?
Let's just say I was asked to introduce myself in front of a group of people, and things did not go as planned. Oh,
That sounds like a story we need to hear. And honestly, it reminds me of something that happened to me, too. A moment that was awkward, funny, and surprisingly helpful at the same time.
we'll tell those stories in just a moment, because what happened next taught both of us something important about confidence, communication, and talking about ourselves.
And trust me, some parts of these stories are probably going to sound very familiar.
Let's get into it. You know, David, when I think about talking about myself, one memory immediately comes to mind. And honestly, even now, it still makes me laugh a little.
Oh, that sounds dangerous already. What happened?
A few years ago, I joined a community event. I didn't know anyone there. Everyone seemed friendly, but I was nervous from the moment I walked into the room.
I know that feeling.
You walk in, and suddenly everyone looks more confident than you.
Exactly. At least that's what it felt like. Then the organizer stood up and said, "Let's go around the room and introduce ourselves." And immediately my heart started beating faster.
The famous introduction circle. A lot of people fear that moment.
The worst part was that I had plenty of time to prepare. There were about 20 people in the room. Every person spoke before me. But instead of listening, I spent the whole time thinking about what I was going to say.
Overthinking mode activated.
Completely. I kept changing my introduction in my head. First, I wanted to sound professional. Then, I wanted to sound friendly. Then I thought maybe I should be funny. By the time my turn arrived, I was completely confused.
Oh no. What did you end up saying?
Honestly, not much. I stood up and suddenly forgot everything. My name, my hobbies, even simple details about myself. I think I introduced myself in about 15 seconds and sat down immediately.
I've been there. That moment when your brain just leaves the building.
Exactly. But here's the interesting part. After the introductions, people came over and started talking to me. They asked questions, they smiled, they shared their own stories. And nobody mentioned my awkward introduction. Not one person.
That's such an important lesson. The thing we worry about the most is often invisible to everyone else.
Yes, I realized that people weren't looking for a perfect speech. They were looking for a real person. And that changed the way I think about introductions.
I love that. And honestly, my story is pretty similar, although mine was a little more embarrassing.
Now I definitely want to hear it.
A few years ago, I attended a networking event. There were people from different companies, different backgrounds, and everyone seemed to know exactly what they were doing. Meanwhile, I was standing near the coffee table pretending to look busy.
The classic strategy. Stay near the coffee and hope nobody notices you're nervous.
Exactly. Eventually, someone walked up to me and said, "Hi, tell me a little about yourself." Simple question, but I panicked.
What did you say?
I said something like, "I'm David, I work, I like coffee." And then I stopped talking.
That's it?
That was it, the entire introduction. 3 short facts, nothing else. I remember thinking, wow, that sounded terrible.
And what happened?
The other person laughed and said, "Well, I like coffee too." Then we started having a normal conversation. We talked for 20 minutes, and it turned out to be one of the best conversations of the day.
That's amazing, and it proves something important. A conversation doesn't depend on a perfect introduction. It depends on connection.
Exactly. I spent days worrying about what I should have said, but the other person didn't care. They just wanted to talk.
I think many English learners put a lot of pressure on themselves. They believe they need the perfect words before they start speaking, but sometimes the best thing you can do is simply start.
That's true, and something else happened after that event. I noticed that confident people weren't necessarily saying more. They were just more comfortable being themselves. They didn't try to sound impressive. They sounded genuine.
I love that word, genuine, because when people ask about you, they usually want the real answer, not the perfect answer.
Exactly, and once I understood that, introductions became much easier. I stopped trying to perform. I started trying to connect.
You know, David, both of our stories have something in common. We thought the problem was speaking, but that wasn't really the problem.
You're right. The real problem was what was happening inside our heads, the fear, the pressure, the belief that we needed to be perfect.
And that's something many people experience, especially when learning English, because every mistake feels bigger than it really is. Every pause feels longer than it actually is. Every small error feels unforgettable.
But most of the time, people remember your energy more than your mistakes. They remember your smile. They remember your story, not your grammar.
That's such a powerful realization. And honestly, what changed everything for me was understanding that confidence doesn't come before speaking. It comes from speaking.
I completely agree. What changed everything for me was realizing that communication isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing to show up, speak, and be yourself.
And once we understood that, everything started to feel different. But there's another reason why talking about yourself becomes easier over time, and it has a lot to do with how confidence actually works.
Exactly, because confidence is often misunderstood. Most people think it's something you either have or don't have, but the truth is much more interesting than that.
You know, David, I used to think confidence was something people were born with. Some people had it, some people didn't. And unfortunately, I thought I was in the second group.
I used to think the same thing. Whenever I met someone who spoke confidently, I assumed they never felt nervous. I thought they had some secret that I didn't know.
Exactly. But over time, I realized something important. Confidence isn't a personality trait. It's a result. It grows after you take action.
That's such a great point. And honestly, confidence reminds me of a muscle. If you never use a muscle, it stays weak. But if you exercise it regularly, it becomes stronger.
I love that comparison. Talking about yourself works the same way. The first time feels difficult. The second time feels slightly easier. And after many conversations, it starts feeling natural.
The funny thing is that many learners wait until they feel confident before speaking. But confidence usually comes after speaking, not before.
That's so true. Imagine someone saying, "I'll go to the gym after I become strong." It sounds backwards.
Exactly. You become strong because you go to the gym, and you become confident because you practice speaking.
I think that's one of the biggest mindset shifts people can make. Stop waiting for confidence. Start creating it.
And there's another metaphor I really like. Progress is like planting a tree.
Oh, that's a good one. Tell us more.
Well, imagine you plant a small tree today. Tomorrow, it looks almost the same. Next week, not much has changed. Even after a month, the growth might seem tiny. But if you come back a year later, the difference is huge.
I love that, because language learning often feels exactly like that. You don't always notice daily progress. Sometimes it feels like nothing is changing. But when you look back, you realize how far you've come.
Absolutely. Maybe 6 months ago, introducing yourself in English felt impossible. Now you can talk about your job, your hobbies, your family, and your goals. The progress happened little by little.
And that's why comparing yourself to others can be dangerous. You're only seeing their tree today. You didn't see when it was a tiny seed.
Wow, that's such a good way to put it. We often compare our beginning to someone else's middle, or even someone else's success.
Exactly. And that comparison can make us forget our own progress.
You know what else confidence reminds me of? A savings jar.
Interesting. How so?
Well, imagine you put 1 coin into a jar every day. 1 coin doesn't seem important. 2 coins don't seem important either. But after months of doing it consistently, the jar becomes full.
I love that metaphor, because every conversation is like adding a coin. Every introduction, every question you answer, every small moment when you choose to speak instead of staying silent.
Exactly. People often underestimate small actions. They think only big achievements matter. But confidence is usually built through small moments repeated many times.
And here's something I wish more learners understood. Mistakes are part of those coins too. They still count.
That's such an important point. A lot of people think mistakes mean failure, but mistakes are actually evidence that you're trying.
I remember a conversation I had years ago. I made several mistakes while speaking English. At the time, I felt embarrassed, but looking back, that conversation helped me improve more than many hours of studying.
I've had experiences like that too. Sometimes the conversations that feel messy teach us the most because they push us outside our comfort zone.
And that's where growth happens, not inside your comfort zone, not while staying silent. Growth happens when you're willing to speak, even when you're unsure.
Exactly. And here's another thing most people don't realize. The goal isn't to become a perfect speaker. The goal is to become a comfortable speaker.
That's such a powerful difference, because perfection feels impossible. Comfort feels achievable.
Right. A comfortable speaker knows they might make mistakes, but they keep talking anyway. They focus on communication, not perfection.
And when you focus on communication, conversations become more enjoyable. You stop treating every sentence like a test. You start treating it like a connection.
I love that. Because at the end of the day, language exists to connect people, not to impress them.
So if you're listening right now and you feel nervous about talking about yourself, remember this. Confidence is a muscle. Progress is a tree. Practice is a savings jar. And every conversation matters.
Even the awkward ones, maybe especially the awkward ones.
That's true. Some of our most uncomfortable conversations become our greatest teachers.
And once you understand that, the next question becomes very important. If confidence can be built, what should listeners actually do to build it?
Exactly, because understanding the idea is helpful, but having practical actions is even better. Let's talk about some simple things people can start doing today.
So, David, we've talked about confidence, mistakes, and why talking about yourself can feel difficult. But I think our listeners are probably wondering something right now. What can I actually do?
Exactly. Because understanding the problem is helpful, but practical steps are what really create change. And the good news is that you don't need anything complicated. Small actions can make a huge difference.
I completely agree. Let's start with the first tip. Tip 1. Prepare a simple introduction. A lot of people think they need a long, impressive introduction, but honestly, simple is usually better.
Absolutely. Instead of preparing 10 sentences, prepare 3 or 4. For example, "Hi, I'm David. I work in marketing. I enjoy reading and hiking. Nice to meet you." That's enough.
Exactly. It's clear, it's natural, and it's easy to remember. The benefit is that you'll feel less nervous because you already know how to start.
And once you start talking, the rest often becomes easier. The hardest part is usually the first few seconds.
Let's move to tip 2. Share small stories instead of just facts. This one changed a lot for me. Many people introduce themselves by listing information, but stories are more memorable.
That's so true. For example, instead of saying, "I like cooking," you could say, "I started cooking during the pandemic, and now I cook almost every weekend."
Exactly. It's still simple English, but now people learn something about you, and stories naturally create conversations.
People can respond to stories. They can ask questions. They can relate to them. That's how real conversations begin.
And honestly, your stories don't need to be exciting. Small, everyday stories are often the most relatable.
Now for tip 3. Tip 3. Talk about your daily life. A lot of learners only practice difficult topics, but daily life is actually one of the best subjects.
I agree. Talk about your morning, talk about your work, talk about what you ate for lunch, talk about your weekend plans.
Exactly. If someone asks you about you, these are often the things you'll discuss anyway. And because you already know your own life, you don't have to invent ideas.
That's a great point. Many learners think they need advanced vocabulary, but being able to describe your daily life clearly is much more useful.
And the more you talk about familiar topics, the more comfortable you become speaking English.
Let's move to tip 4. Focus on connection instead of perfection. Honestly, this might be my favorite tip.
Mine too, because this changes everything. When you're focused on perfection, every mistake feels huge. When you're focused on connection, mistakes become less important.
Exactly. Imagine you're talking to a new friend. Your goal isn't to impress them. Your goal is to connect with them, to share ideas, to learn about each other.
And here's something interesting. People usually enjoy talking with someone who is genuine more than someone who sounds perfect.
I completely agree. Warmth is often more memorable than perfect grammar.
That's so true. People remember conversations that feel real, not conversations that sound like exams.
And finally, tip 5. Repeat your introduction in different situations. This sounds simple, but it's incredibly effective.
Absolutely. Many learners introduce themselves once and then never practice again, but repetition builds confidence.
Try introducing yourself in different ways, to a friend, to a language partner, to yourself in front of a mirror, even while walking outside.
And don't memorize one perfect script. Instead, practice saying similar things in slightly different ways. That helps you become more flexible.
Exactly, because real conversations are never identical. The more variations you practice, the more natural you'll sound.
And something surprising happens after enough repetition. You stop thinking about every sentence. You start focusing on the conversation itself.
That's when speaking becomes enjoyable. You're no longer trying to survive the conversation, you're actually participating in it.
I love that, because that's the goal. Not perfect English, not perfect introductions, real communication.
So let's quickly recap. Prepare a simple introduction, share small stories, talk about your daily life, focus on connection instead of perfection, and practice regularly in different situations.
None of these tips are complicated, but together they can make a huge difference.
And once you start using these ideas, you'll notice something interesting. Talking about yourself becomes less stressful and much more natural.
But before we finish, there's one more thing we should do. Let's review some useful vocabulary from today's conversation, because a few simple words can help you express yourself much more clearly.
And after that, we'll do a short shadowing practice together that you can repeat out loud. We've shared stories, talked about confidence, and explored some practical tips. But before we finish today's episode, let's review some useful vocabulary that can help you talk about yourself more naturally.
That's right. And don't worry, we're going to keep things simple and practical. These are words you'll hear often in everyday conversations. Section A, Vocabulary Review. Word 1, introduce.
Our first word is introduce. Introduce means to tell people who you are or help people get to know someone.
Example sentence, let me introduce myself. Or, she introduced herself to the group.
This is one of the most useful words when meeting new people.
Word 2, nervous. The second word is nervous. Nervous means feeling worried, uncomfortable, or anxious about something.
Example sentence, I felt nervous before speaking English.
And honestly, feeling nervous is completely normal. Almost everyone experiences it.
Word 3, confident.
The third word is confident. Confident means believing in yourself and your abilities.
Example sentence, I feel more confident when I practice regularly.
Remember, confidence usually grows through action. It's not something that appears overnight.
Word 4, experience.
Next is experience. An experience is something that happens to you or something you've done.
Example sentence, traveling abroad was a wonderful experience.
Sharing experiences is a great way to talk about yourself.
Word 5, comfortable.
The fifth word is comfortable. Comfortable means feeling relaxed and at ease.
And that's really what we're aiming for, not perfection, comfort.
Word 6, conversation. Our next word is conversation. A conversation is a talk between two or more people.
Example sentence, we had a great conversation over coffee.
And every conversation is an opportunity to practice.
Word 7, practice.
The seventh word is practice. Practice means doing something repeatedly to improve.
Simple word, powerful result.
Word 8, connect. Our final word is connect. Connect means building a relationship or understanding with someone.
Example sentence, I enjoy connecting with people from different countries.
And honestly, that's one of the best reasons to learn a language, to connect with people. Section B, motivation.
Before we move into our shadowing practice, I'd like to share something with our listeners. If talking about yourself feels difficult right now, that's okay. It doesn't mean you're bad at English. It doesn't mean you're behind. It simply means you're learning.
I completely agree. Sometimes people think progress should happen quickly, but real progress often happens quietly, day by day, conversation by conversation.
And remember something important. Mistakes are not signs of failure, they're signs of effort. Every mistake means you were brave enough to try.
Exactly. Some of the most confident speakers you know probably made hundreds or even thousands of mistakes along the way. They just didn't stop.
And that's why consistency matters so much. 10 minutes of practice every day is often better than one long study session once a month.
Small steps may feel small today, but over time, they create big results.
Section C. Comment questions. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Here's our first question. Do you feel nervous when talking about yourself in English?
Question number 2. What is the hardest question someone has asked you in English?
And our final question, if you had one sentence to introduce yourself, what would you say?
Take a moment and think about your answers, or even better, leave a comment below. We genuinely enjoy reading them.
And speaking of practice, there's one more thing we should do before we finish today's episode.
That's right. Let's turn listening into speaking, because the best way to build confidence is to actually use your voice.
So, grab a cup of coffee, take a deep breath, and get ready. We're about to do a short shadowing practice together.
Now let's do a short shadowing practice together.
Great. Listen first, then repeat after us.
Sentence 1. I sometimes feel nervous when talking about myself.
Repeat. I sometimes feel nervous when talking about myself.
Repeat one more time. I sometimes feel nervous when talking about myself. Sentence 2. I know more English than I think I do.
Repeat. I know more English than I think I do.
Repeat one more time. I know more English than I think I do. Sentence 3. I don't need perfect words to start speaking.
Repeat. I don't need perfect words to start speaking.
Repeat one more time. I don't need perfect words to start speaking. Sentence 4. Making mistakes is a normal part of learning.
Repeat. Making mistakes is a normal part of learning.
Repeat one more time. Making mistakes is a normal part of learning. Sentence 5. Every conversation helps me build confidence.
Repeat. Every conversation helps me build confidence.
Repeat one more time. Every conversation helps me build confidence. Sentence 6. I can focus on communication instead of perfection.
Repeat. I can focus on communication instead of perfection.
Repeat one more time. I can focus on communication instead of perfection. Sentence 7. I enjoy sharing small stories about my life.
Repeat. I enjoy sharing small stories about my life.
Repeat one more time. I enjoy sharing small stories about my life. Sentence 8. I practice speaking English a little every day.
Repeat. I practice speaking English a little every day.
Repeat one more time. I practice speaking English a little every day. Sentence 9. Each time I speak, I become more comfortable.
Repeat. Each time I speak, I become more comfortable.
Repeat one more time. Each time I speak, I become more comfortable. Sentence 10. Confidence grows when I keep moving forward.
Repeat. Confidence grows when I keep moving forward.
Repeat one more time. Confidence grows when I keep moving forward. Excellent job!
If you repeated all 10 sentences, you're already improving your English.
Remember, confidence comes from practice, not perfection.
Every small step counts.
And before we say goodbye, we just want to remind you of something. If talking about yourself feels difficult right now, you're not alone. Many English learners feel exactly the same way.
The important thing is not being perfect. The important thing is being willing to speak. One sentence today can become a conversation tomorrow.
And one conversation can become confidence, little by little, day by day.
So the next time someone asks,
Tell me about yourself. Don't worry about giving the perfect answer. Just share a little piece of who you are. That's enough.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. We truly appreciate every listener who joins us on this journey.
Whether you're studying English, driving to work, relaxing at home, or taking a walk, we're glad you chose to spend these moments with us.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love to have you back for the next one. Keep listening, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself.
Your English doesn't have to be perfect to be meaningful. Your voice matters, and your story matters too.
Take care, everyone.
See you next time.
Bye for now.
Goodbye, everyone.